What if the place haunting you isn't the town, but your own history? Silent Hill has never just been streets and fog. It's the machinery of the mind turned outward. It takes what you survived, guilt you buried, shame you never named, the moment that changed how you breathe, and gives it teeth. Silent Hill F doesn't pretend otherwise. It is not gentle. It deals in torture, child abuse, bullying, and body horror, and stares long enough that you can't look away. The fear isn't cheap, it's intimate. When the world slips, it doesn't just spawn monsters, it rearranges itself into the shape of the wounds you carry. That's the terror here. Not just that something can kill you, but that it can recognize you. Silent Hill has always asked ugly, necessary questions. F sharpens them. When a game dares to put real world harm on the screen, does it earn that weight or exploit it? When it makes you endure, does it also help you understand? And when the horror is this hostile, this personal, is the journey still worth your night? Now let's head to your favorite bar, grab a drink, and join me for today's story about Silent Hill F. Does this unflinching terror earn its truth? And is that truth worth your night? Before we get into systems, I like to do a little gut check because horror breathes in the spaces between frames. If the rhythm stumbles or the inputs turn syrupy, the dread dulls. So how does it feel on PC? I play it on a 1440p laptop with an RTX 4080 and a simple 60 FPS cap. I stick to 60 in games like this. Higher frame rates make me a bit woozy, and the cap keeps temperatures civil. Compared to other UE5 titles, this one didn't cook my laptop. Fans spin up during big moments, sure, but overall it ran cooler than I expected. Moment to moment, it's steady, I had no crashes. Even with a capture app rolling and a 60 FPS Discord stream, because yes, I'm too spooked to play alone sometimes, the game held its pace. I did see the occasional hitch, usually when entering a fresh area or when the screen explodes with particles, but they were blink and gone, not the kind that can break a scare. You'll notice one quirk right away. Most cutscenes play at 30, then the camera tucks behind Hanako and you're back at 60. The handoff is clean, but you feel the shift, like stepping from carpet to tile. After a few scenes, my brain stopped chasing it. Input stayed snappy overall. Once or twice during the heaviest effects, I felt a hint of mush that smelled more like a frame pacing or overlay overhead more than anything truly game-breaking. On decent hardware, Silent Hill F stays stable where it counts, so the sound, the light, and those quiet camera glides can carry the fear. With the ring checked, let's talk about how it feels when you actually raise that pipe. I'll be honest up front, this is the weakest pillar of the game for me, but not the disaster some people make it out to be. It's melee only, so no panic headshots to save you. You carry up to 3 breakable weapons, each with light and heavy swings, a dodge, and a focused state that sharpens your timing at the cost of your sanity. On paper, that sounds tense. In practice, it's more complicated, and sometimes clumsy, in ways that are both intentional and occasionally irritating. You play as Hanako, a teenager, not a bruiser. The stamina bar is small early on, and that's thematically right. If you sprint or flail, she'll huff and stall. A greedy combo leaves her catching her breath, exposed. The game keeps reminding you, you are not a soldier. Hell, you are not even a grown-up. When I lean into that, one measured step, a single clean hit, then back out, the loop feels grounded. Bait, slip, punish, breathe. Rushing only turns fear into frustration. Where I struggle is the feel of some hit reactions. Enemies do flinch, you see the blood and the stagger, but the feedback can land a beat late, like the strike registers, and only then the body remembers to react. In tight hallways, the camera and lock-on don't always help. A heavy wind-up clips a wall, or the reticle hops to the wrong target, And I'm eating a swipe I should have avoided. Doorways are the worst culprits. A step too far, and you're either swinging into the frame or watching an animation lock play out while something nibbles your health. Durability is another quiet pressure. Pipe split, blades dull, bats splinter, and you're always doing the math in the back of your head. Is this fight worth the wear? Early on, the answer is often no. Slipping past a pair of shamblers is smarter than chewing through a good weapon just to feel brave. For a while, discretion isn't cowardice, it's survival. Then that calculus changes. Mid to late, there's a big shift. The fox arm is the headline. That turns fear into ferocity. For a few glorious windows, melee sings. Distance closes faster. Heavies bite harder, and the same mannequins that felt like sandbags earlier start flying apart in 2 hits. Is it the Silent Hill gameplay I grew up with? No, of course not. But damn, it feels good. The franchise has been in hibernation for a long time. If this is the change that helps bring it back, so long as its heart stays intact and the team keeps building on it, I'm more than fine with that. And when that surge settles, the game gathers its rules in one place. The bosses. Patterns are readable, tells are honest, and the arena framing finally gives the camera room to breathe. You still mind stamina, sanity, and space, but here the cadence feels intentional instead of improvised. Less attrition, more conversation. These fights sell the idea that Hinako can learn, adapt, and overcome without magically turning into a superhero, bridging the fragile early hours and that mid-game rush into something that actually feels earned. There are, inevitably, rough edges. Multi-target lock-on can wobble. Some enemies seem to shrug off early hits and snap back too fast. Heavy wind-ups have real commitment and can feel glacial if you misjudge spacing. And yes, there are more outright brawls than I expected, particularly late, with wave-style rooms that test patience more than nerves. But taken as a whole, the combat hasn't been about stylish power trips for me. It's about staying composed while underpowered, choosing when not to fight, and making the one swing that actually matters. If you're coming for a silky action game, this won't convert you. If you're willing to meet it on its terms, fragile body, scarce breath, and the constant question of is this fight necessary, there's enough texture here to carry the story's weight. The best advice I can give is simple. Play slow, count your steps, save focus for when you're sure, and don't be afraid to walk away. When the steel quiets and the hallway stops echoing with your own breathing, the game remembers its oldest trick. It turns space into a riddle. Combat in Silent Hill F is a staccato heartbeat. Measured steps, one good hit, breathe. But the moment you're left alone with a door, a note, and a silence that feels like it's listening back, the fear changes shape. Here, the map is the puzzle, and the puzzle is how you learn people. I'll start with the village because that's where your feet learn the cadence. Ebisugoka is workmanlike, streets that tie together a school, a few houses, a park. Early on, it can feel brisk, like the camera is nudging you to the next objective before the fog has time to settle in your bones. I wanted to loiter more. Even so, the restraints serves a purpose. The town teaches you the grammar of routes, doors, and detours, so the next act can start speaking in paragraphs instead of short sentences. Outside the other world, exploration has its own soft calculus. Because weapons chip and break, every detour is a question. Is this side room worth the wear? Sometimes the answer is yes. A stash of items, a scrap of story. Sometimes the answer is a chewed up pipe and a longer walk to the next safe spot. That quiet risk-reward loop shapes how you read the space. You stop being a tourist, you become careful. Shrines act as way stations that click the rhythm forward. They're save points, yes, but they're also where you cash in found trinkets and pick gentle perks. More stamina, a bit of health, a cleaner dodge. The loop becomes route, riddle, resupply. It keeps you moving without turning the world into a hallway. Each shrine feels like the mechanism of a puzzle box snapping into place. And sometimes the game just shuts the door behind you and whispers, not yet. Solve this first. I usually bristle at being locked in, but here the claustrophobia is intentional, a tonal tool. When the logic wobbles, being trapped with it is less charming. The consolidation prize is variety. Even the puzzles that frustrate tend to be distinct rather than copied and pasted. Then the floorboards shift, and you see the village's other face, the shrine realm. If the town is the deadpan mask, the shrine is the twitch underneath, sinister and strangely beautiful, layered with torii gates and paper lanterns. This is where level design blossoms. These places aren't just backdrops, they're contraptions. Switch networks that rewire your route, treasure hunt trails that demand you read the room like a diary, layouts that momentarily sideline fighting so your brain, not your bat, does the heavy lifting. When the spaces click, it feels like turning a key in the game's ribs. Not every room sings. A few instructions are wordy or opaque. A couple of sequences overstay their welcome. The Scarecrow field is a stunner the first time. Thorns, fog, one guiding figure among many. But looping that path sands off the magic. A school puzzle that wants you to decode fruit and vegetable drawings is a clever idea that leans on knowledge not everyone brings with them. I still enjoyed the chase, but those moments flirt with guess until it clicks more than I'd like. Then you stumble into a gem and remember why these puzzles linger. The school gossip board hunt. Piecing together notes to crack combination locks feels perfectly diegetic. The clues live in the world. The solution is both mechanical and social. The reward is a door opening and a person coming into focus. That blend of narrative and problem solving, that's the series at its best. Back in the village, the game saves one of its headline tricks for a homecoming, collecting scattered calendar pages in Hinako's house and using them to hop between time slices. It's mechanically legible and thematically sharp. The room is the lock, the dates are the tumblers, your past is the door. That's the puzzle box promise fulfilled. Outside the shrine, in the place that's supposed to feel safest. If you're wondering about fairness, on hard puzzle difficulty, I found most solutions honest with the journal's help. Outside of an early field detour that can swallow your sense of direction, environmental puzzling tends to be more about route finding than paper and pen riddles. Get here, do that, now go here sounds simple until the space itself starts arguing with you. That feels right for Silent Hill. Fear expressed through wayfinding, not just codes and ciphers. So is this some of the best puzzle and map work in the series? For me, yes. Not because every lock is ingenious, but because the spaces tell the story. The school gossip board isn't just a code, it's a portrait of cruelty. The calendar isn't just a collectible, it's a mechanism for grief. Even the missteps teach something, how repetition can deaden awe, how clarity matters when you're trapped in a room with your thoughts and only one true answer. And the design seems to know this. Why else encourage you to turn puzzles up and combat down to hear the click of a good idea over the crunch of a perfect swing? By the time I stepped back, I'd stopped seeing doors as obstacles and started hearing them as questions. Solve the room, learn the person. That's a very Silent Hill way to be scared. And it's the perfect bridge into the next part of this night. The world that holds these spaces, and the people whose secrets make them hurt.
私は一人でも全然寂しくないの。仲間外れなんか気にしないもん。
ひなこ、お友達のところに遊びに行ったんじゃなかったの？
男の子と遊ぶ子はおままごとに入れてあげないだって。
じゃあお姉ちゃんと一緒におままごとしよっか。
本当？
Silent Hill F sets its lens on 1960s Ebisugoka, a rural village where politeness is armor and cruelty often travels as gossip. The setting isn't just window dressing, it's texture that keeps turning into text. Muddy patties and Ramune bottles, students' desks, and household shrines, Ordinary objects wear a second face when the world curdles, and you realize you're moving through a culture that knows how to bury pain neatly under routine. That's where this entry is most distinctive. The place feels lived in first, haunted second. When the red growth threads itself through tatami and wood, it's not a magic trick. It's a metaphor that's been waiting in the walls. The other face of the village, the shrine realm, takes that metaphor and makes it spatial. It's sinister and strangely beautiful. Lanterns and gates, paper charms and voids. But more importantly, it speaks in the same language as the puzzles we just discussed. These are contraptions of memory and meaning, where combat steps back and the layout becomes the argument. You push a root, peel a layer, and the space replies. Transitions into that realm are often mediated. Sleep, collapse, a cinematic tilt, so the crossing feels less like a physical door and more like a psychological slip. That choice makes the two worlds feel spiritually connected, even when the handoff isn't as tactile as the series' oldest entries. F's environmental storytelling loves paper. Notes, letters, school postings, ledgers, every scrap is a voice that wasn't safe to speak aloud. It's a chorus of small truths: a teacher's blind eye, a neighbor's tight smile, a parent's excuse. You piece them together and a social map emerges. Who is allowed to be believed? Who is asked to disappear? The result is that the world keeps talking even when characters stay quiet. The level of detail invites you to be a reader as much as a player. And because this is a game about harm as much as horror, the dossier reading is part of the ethics. You're not just decoding a lock, you're learning why the lock was built that way in the first place. That's the rhythm I fell into. Walk, read, infer, cross, reread, rethink. The shrine turns thought into structure. The village turns structure back into thought. When the red flower blooms, it isn't only body horror. It's how shame metastasizes. How a story told about you becomes a story you cannot escape. F understands that you don't need a god cult to make a town dangerous. A PTA and a patriarch can do the job just fine. The other world doesn't erase that. If anything, it flatters the truth. Hinako's journey ties it all together. It isn't just a hint machine. It's the place where she tries to make sense of what adults refuse to name. Flip it open during a shrine detour, and she's a problem solver. Flip it open after a letter from home, and she's a survivor running diagnostics on her own heart. Those notes, by the way, change across runs. Even early scenes can echo differently once you know where the fault lines really are. You're not looking for loot in New Game Plus as much as you're looking for clarity. The medium is the message. Reread the same rooms with a new vocabulary, and suddenly doors you missed become obvious. Silent Hill has always been less about the town and more about the people who carry it around inside them. F gets that. The monsters here are born from the era as much as the individual. A father who becomes the thing Hinako fears is not an alien creature. He's a product of a society that launders violence through duty and face. A mother who looks away is not a cackling villain. She's what happens when survival means compliance and silence. That doesn't absolve anyone, it situates them. And then the other world does what Silent Hill always does. It takes those situational evils and gives them bodies you have to confront. Which brings me to the image the game keeps circling: puppetry. So many things in F move like puppets. Limbs hinge too neatly, poses freeze like mannequins, and that red growth doesn't just bloom, it threads. In 1960s Ebisugoka, that reads like an indictment. Children and women were expected to be lovely, compliant, useful. Less people than display pieces that carry a family's face or debt. The other world just literalizes the arrangement. Rumor is the unseen hand, obligation the string, the bodies the dolls. When a figure buckles and gets cinched into shape, it isn't only body horror, it's etiquette as violence. Obedience tightened until it creaks. That's why the game can hold the possibility that a father would sell a daughter and still look himself in the mirror. The system already taught him love is a transaction and a child is collateral.
とにかく今後のことは親の方で話を進める。
お父さん、ひな子の気持ちだって。
こんな話二度とないんだぞ。ひな子にとってこれ以上の幸せがあるか。あるわけがない。
It isn't just the fear of being pushed into a marriage that twists Tanako's future. It's the deeper fear of being reshaped to the core, pressed into the role the village already wrote for her. She despises her father, resents her mother, and the cruel irony is that the path laid out forces her towards the thing she hates most, a lovely, obedient puppet. So when she turns on a friend or severs ties with family, it doesn't land like triumph. It reads as self-erasure, cutting away the pieces that won't fit the costume. You're not just playing Hinako present tense, you're walking two rails at once. The self that still breathes freely, and the self that will be strung on strings by morning. That's the horror underneath the horror, not just dying, but becoming something you swore you'd never be. Notice how the final form treats identity. The face thins to almost nothing, and she keeps repeating my name is Hanako like a lifeline. Masks belong to puppets, faces belong to people. When a name must be spoken again and again, it's because the name is fighting not to be peeled off the body. That tug of war between a person and the part she's forced to play is what finally breaks her. Silent Hill games have a tradition of multiple endings, and here it isn't just a cute series habit. It's built into how the story wants to be read. A first run gets you a complete arc. Then, New Game Plus opens doors, literally and figuratively. You keep what you've learned and what you've earned. More interiors open, some puzzles remix, and early scenes carry new lines that weren't there before. The game even warns you when you're about to skip a cinematic that has new content on a replay, which is both considerate and revealing. It expects you to come back, and you should. The added context makes the early hours thrum with new meanings, and choices funnel you toward different outcomes, plural, not just a binary good or bad. If you're the kind of person who wants a single true answer, you'll feel the pull to keep going beyond a single New Game Plus run. I won't enumerate how many conclusions exist because discovery is part of the appeal, but know this. There are additional endings beyond the initial playthrough, and the strongest reads of the themes come from letting the cycle play out more than once. The replay isn't padding, it's perspective. Mechanically, subsequent runs also alter tempo. You'll encounter potent weapons earlier, skip some of the stickier corridors, and focus more on the rooms that matter. That dovetails nicely with the narrative goal. Reduce the friction you already mastered, so your headspace is freed up to notice the new lines, the shifted emphasis, the way a character's sentence now lands like a loaded phrase instead of a throwaway. This is where F most clearly feels like a conversation between player and text. Run 1 asks, what happened? Run 2, why did it happen? Run 3, if you go that far, what does it mean to choose differently now that you know? I know the objections. It's not the town of Silent Hill. The Otherworld crossing is more Dream Tilt than Siren and Peel. Combat's a heavier slice than some wanted. But when I ask the only question that matters, does it keep the heart of Silent Hill? My answer is yes. The heart was never the zip code. It was always thesis. Horror is what we make of our own pain. F pursues that thesis with a particular cultural lens, a particular set of wounds, and a willingness to stare back at cruelty without flinching. That's not betrayal of the series, that's the work. So, is it worth your night? If you're chasing jump scares and easy catharsis, Silent Hill F won't be your favorite chapter. But if you're ready to sit with ugliness, decode a place, and let a second playthrough teach you how to read the first, it's more than worth it. The village speaks even when its people don't. The shrine answers in geometry when words fail. Hinako grows, not into a superhero, but into someone who can look at the thing and name it. The endings aren't revealing so much as mirrors of what you chose to notice and what you finally allowed yourself to leave behind. That, to me, is Silent Hill at full volume, a story that asks you to pay attention and a world that rewards you for listening. It doesn't measure courage by how hard you swing, but by how honestly you look. Every run is a small act of rereading, and every rereading is a small act of becoming. And maybe that's the quiet gift under all the hurt. This game keeps asking who gets to author your own life: the town, the family, the rumor, or you. It teaches in loops because healing often is one. Return, understand, return again, understand differently. When a door finally opens, it's not because the puzzle was clever, it's because you were. You learn to carry yourself without letting the place carry you. So take this with you, outside the fog, and into whatever room you're in now. There is no one like you. There has never been anyone like you. There will never be anyone like you. Therefore, be yourself. Not the self the village assigned, not the self fear rehearsed. The self that survives by speaking plainly about what was done and what ends with you. If F leaves anything behind, it's permission to be seen without apology, to name the hurt without becoming it, to choose the path even when the map insists there isn't one. If you made it this far, thank you for spending your night with me. If this helped you decide, or you just like sharing the quiet dread, tap like, drop a sub, and tell me which ending made you rethink the first hour. Now finish your drink, breathe, and if you're ready, step back into Ebisugoka. Some doors only open when you return, and this time, you're bringing yourself with you.